I'm Lior Phillips, host of This Must Be the Gig. We're a weekly podcast that documents everything about the world of live music, speaking with choreographers, costume and set designers, the people who run beloved venues and festivals, and, of course, speaking with musicians about that one gig that changed their lives. Get your peek behind the curtain at consequenceofsound.net, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK, Independent Louisville at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. If you're not subscribed so far, go ahead and take a second to do that. We run these interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Consequence of Sound, and we've got so many ways for you to keep up with us. Maybe you're listening on YouTube, on Spotify, or really wherever you get your favorite podcasts from, like iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Acast, and Podchaser. So my guest today is Hannah Harding. You know her as Aldous Harding. She's got a brand new record called Designer, and it's a beautiful record. We're going to get into a little bit what the time was like in between this. She says she went from playing like hundreds of shows to basically having nearly a year off. So there's a bit of an adjustment period that comes along with that. A lot of these songs were to have said to have been written on the road. So does that make it a road record? Not quite, and she'll explain why. We also get into the concept of Designer and her talent for minimalism, which doesn't seem like minimalism. She does a really cool trick with all of that. It really is one of my favorite records at the moment. Kyle Meredith with Aldous Harding.
Hi, yeah.
Dude, I'm in love with Designer. What a great record that this is. You've really outdone yourself on this. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I was reading an interview that you had also done recently. You talked about, you know, between these records, how you had done so much touring, like this nonstop touring, and suddenly hadn't played a show for like 10 months or something like that. Are you starting to ramp and adjust back to this lifestyle?
I think that the way I was touring, more than the amount, was the issue, you know. I'd kind of gone from somebody who wasn't really sure that they were going to do any of this, and then suddenly, you know, and I don't want to quote myself, but I did sort of just stand up, you know. People were like, this is interesting. We like this. And I was like, oh, all right. And I kind of stood up and I kept standing up. And, you know, it felt a bit like, it kind of felt a little bit like I was on a quiz show, and they were like, okay, and this round is called Be the Singer, choose somebody from your team. And then it kept being my job. And I think that I became very hungry very quickly to fulfill, own that and do that. And I think the hunger and not the pressure, but the the hunger became sort of more important than rest and things, or saying no. So it wasn't really that much. It was just the way I was doing it, you know, giving absolutely all of myself, which is what a lot of performers do. I'm not special in that regard. I just and I think I just have to be careful not to. I don't know.
To give yourself like that for so long, and you know, to whatever level of bearing your soul in these songs, did that change your relationship with, you know, the music and the words that you had written, having to produce them so many times night after night like that?
Well, no, because I was creating new memories, you know. I wasn't necessarily living the same story every night or thinking about why I'd written those songs. I was focused on creating new memories for other people and for myself, and wanting people to walk away feeling like they'd seen something interesting. That was enough to keep it going, you know. They weren't perfect every time, but that was kind of, I had to make it less about my personal experience, you know.
So for these songs then, for the songs on Designer, I mean, as I read, if it's right. I mean, a lot of these were written while you were out on the tour. And if that's right, do you look at it as a road record? Because, I mean, there's a lot of cities kind of named, or at least places named, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting because that wasn't intentional. And there are a lot of words that as far as I'm concerned, Dubai, words like Dubai and Amazon and things like that are just as much at a songwriter's disposal as the word love, or it's not an on the road record. Travel wasn't really in my mind. I mean, I don't know. Again, when I'm doing it, I'm doing it. I'm not thinking about doing it. So it's difficult to come back and try to make sense of what's been done, But I guess these are I just thought they were interesting words that created imagery, And I've been asked a lot about that Dubai line, and I think the fact that I am being asked about that line means it worked. Who's in Dubai? What? Who's in Dubai? It worked, and it rhymed with the word why. And I thought that it would create imagery. I mean, I've never been outside the airport in Dubai, but I imagine that it's quite a thing.
You say the word love, and it does conjure something, even if you're just saying the word love. But obviously, when you put a place to it, that for a lot of us is just a part of imagination. I don't know that I'll ever be in Dubai, in that sense. So it does kind of place the song somewhere for me, and so does the Amazon. And I don't know, it's coincidentally that I was just watching a documentary about Percy Fawcett, the explorer who got lost in the Amazon, and I was listening to that song right afterwards. So it definitely paints a picture, in the best way.
Yeah, I don't know, and what's interesting is I don't know much about the Amazon. It was part of my vocabulary.
Well, it worked. It worked for me, anyways. It definitely did something that I think you were hoping for. It sounds like. While we're talking about places, I hope you don't mind, because you're from New Zealand, and it has been in the news for the most unfortunate reason right now, with what happened down there. And I didn't know if you'd had, if you'd heard like what's happened with the, the community down there, and especially if any of, your artist friends or anything like that's been affected in I mean, I imagine everybody's been affected, even up here, but I guess locally for you, if there's a connection.
Well, I'm from Christchurch. The thing is, I feel it's a little too. This question's a little too hard, just because I don't really have anything to offer other than my love and shame and condolences, from the other side. And I feel I haven't spoken about it with many people that I do know. And I would feel odd to go into it in this instance.
Completely. Yeah, I completely understand that.
And it's not, and I'm not trying to make you feel like you've asked the wrong question. It's not that at all. I don't really know how to. It's not something I can. That I want to even try and impress myself or other people with an answer for. Well, not an answer, but any kind of comment really. It's not really. I wouldn't do it like this if I was going to try,
I don't know if this would be an easier question then, but it's definitely a different subject. And that's with that title of the album, Designer, too, because I it's a playful term in a lot of ways, and maybe you meant it to be like that because, I don't know, it could be God, it could be a DNA specialist, and it could be a clothing designer, I thought. And I didn't know if there was a specific spot that you were coming from on that.
The spot is that I am coming from, but first, I said there's a couple of rooms that I've been in with it, and I think that the first being I'm not fussy about where people go with the title. If the first thing that comes into your mind is I am the designer, or if the first thing that comes into your mind is God, I'm keeping it very open, and I think that if nothing else, it's certainly a word that we associate with effort and curiosity and a zest for finding concepts and things like that. And that's great. I think it's strong, right? So, but when I was writing the song, this other room I wanted it to be a full stop. Like I wanted it to be an elegant word that I just put at the end to wrap up what had kind of gone on before, you know, because it was quite an odd song, and I knew that, but I was not feeling apologetic about that, and I sort of let it do what I made it do. You know, some of the stuff I'm saying, like the ugly sun, things like that. It was like design. You know, I just wanted it to be. I needed a interesting, elegant word to sort of like seriously. You know,
yeah,
seriously, and also, you know, that you know, it's designer. If I say it's designer, just like you say, it's designer. You know, that there's no such thing as that really, and almost like sort of deal with that in a loving way though, and that this is what I think, and I don't think that you can go wrong when it comes to making something that you are enjoying.
That sort of falls in line with, I guess, one of the most impressive things that you do, to me at least, with your arts, is how you can make something so big from something so simple. Like take this, the title for one, but maybe like the horns on the song "Damn." I mean, you've got what sounds like one little thing atop another one little thing, and nothing else is needed. You know, those two little things sort of do everything. Which, you know, if you hear a lot of painters talk about that, about knowing when to stop, and to me, I feel like that would be the hardest struggle. But do you struggle with that?
I don't think so. I struggle to add things, if anything, because, and that was one of my anxieties about, you know, hearing the sort of these new songs that I was writing. I wasn't trying to write songs like this. It's just sort of what was happening, and I'd be lying if I said, how am I, somebody who's to whatever degree known for space and surprise and things like that, how am I going to express myself in this busy, not busy, but busy, in a busier way? Because it's what they're asking for. And I asked myself the same question before I'd made Party with John, and the answer is it just sort of, it's like having a baby for the first time, and you just learn when it's too hot or it's hungry or it needs sleep. It's a very specific intuition, and I've had practice. I've had more, you know, after I made Party, I'd had more practice doing that, and I think, you know, when it came up, I found it more or less straightforward. What I did before just was more.
Well, I absolutely love it, and you know, you kind of get that from, of course, the video to the barrel too. I mean, it's just these small little things that make this, you know, one massive reaction, I guess, at least that I get. That, by the way, just a side note, it's one of my favorite singles that I've heard this year with the barrel. I just cannot get enough of that song. It's
well, thank you.
Yeah, trans-like in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'm not above enjoying you say that. You know, that's nice because it is a very selfless, artistically selfless step that I made. Not going or, you know, trying to make that step, but it was just made, and it's nice that people are feeling that, I suppose, and are enjoying it. You know, and I'm getting used to, because part of me was always a bit dubious when people enjoyed my music, because I thought, but I'm just growing up, isn't it? It's just growing up, and yeah, I'm glad you like it.
I can say that for the whole album. It really is a really great work of arts that you pulled off here with Designer. So thank you for that. Hannah, thank you so much for the conversation today, too. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It was a pleasure talking to you, and I can't wait to hear what these songs sound like live when they roll around.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna I'm gonna see what I've got. That's all I can do. Yeah.
All right. It was a pleasure. Take care.
See you.
Right. And my thanks to Hannah from Aldous Harding, and the new record is called Designer. Hey, before you get out of here, if you haven't already, I hope you hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening from right now. Maybe you're checking us out on YouTube or Spotify. Maybe you got the podcast iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get yours. Hit that subscribe button there. After that, you can head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you can also find some bonus episodes of this series. ConsequenceOfSound.net, they've got all your music and film news needs. You can find me at Twitter at Kyle Meredith and Facebook/Kyle Meredith. Does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.